You've probably noticed it too. More arguments, more selfishness, more people ready to twist your words, drain your energy, and make everything about themselves. It feels like toxic behavior isn't rare anymore. It's everywhere. And if you're wondering why society is producing more of these people than ever before, it's not your imagination. There are real psychological, cultural, and social forces creating a perfect breeding ground for toxic personalities to multiply and thrive. It starts with emotional numbness. Modern life is overstimulated, hyperconnected, and constantly demanding something from you. People don't know how to sit with discomfort, think deeply, or process their emotions anymore. So they choose the faster route: avoidance, denial, blame shifting. These habits slowly turn into toxic coping mechanisms, where hurting others becomes easier than confronting themselves. When you numb your empathy long enough, you stop noticing the pain you cause. And that's exactly how the toxic mindset begins. Then there's the culture of instant gratification. Everything is designed to be fast. Fast entertainment, fast communication, fast validation. And when you combine speed with entitlement, you get a generation of people who believe they deserve what they want without putting effort into earning it. Toxic people thrive in this mindset because it rewards manipulation. It rewards shortcuts. It rewards behavior that takes from others without giving anything back. This creates a world where emotional maturity feels optional and selfishness feels justified. But the most dangerous shift is happening silently: the rise of emotional illiteracy. People know how to express opinions, but they don't know how to express feelings. They know how to argue, but not how to reflect. They know how to blame, but not how to take responsibility. When you lack these skills, you default to survival mode. And survival mode often looks aggressive, defensive, or manipulative. Toxic people aren't born that way. Many of them are simply emotionally undeveloped adults who learned how to function through control instead of connection. And society keeps rewarding it. Social media gives attention to the loudest, harshest voices. Entertainment normalizes narcissistic attitudes. Influencers turn selfishness into a brand. The algorithm pushes conflict and drama because it's profitable. So the very platforms that shape our values are feeding the traits that create toxic personalities: envy, comparison, insecurity, and the desire to dominate. And every time someone gets attention for bad behavior, the message is reinforced: this works. Do more of it. But beneath all of this is something deeper. People are becoming more disconnected from themselves. When you don't know who you are, you look for identity through power, control, and superiority. When you don't feel grounded, you look for external targets to blame for your internal chaos. When you're afraid to face your weaknesses, you attack the weaknesses of others instead. That's why toxic people find comfort in tearing others down. It distracts them from the emptiness they refuse to confront. And the truth no one talks about is this: society is becoming more fragile. People are breaking faster. They're overwhelmed, insecure, and desperate for any form of control. And when someone feels powerless inside, they often respond by taking power from others. It's a twisted survival strategy, but one that's becoming more common as emotional resilience decreases. Toxic behavior becomes the mask people wear to hide vulnerability they don't know how to manage. This is why walking through the world now feels like navigating emotional landmines. You talk to someone, and you have no idea if they're going to be kind or if they're going to explode. You share an opinion, and suddenly someone feels attacked. You set a boundary, and they treat it like betrayal. People aren't developing stronger identities. They're developing thinner skins. And thin skin plus high ego is the perfect recipe for toxic reactions. As a result, even ordinary interactions are becoming battlegrounds. People twist your words because they're insecure. They lash out because they're overwhelmed. They blame you because it's easier than fixing themselves. They manipulate because honesty requires vulnerability they don't have. Society didn't just produce toxic people. It created an environment where toxicity is the default response for anyone who feels threatened by life, by struggle, or by their own reflection. And the saddest part? Most toxic people don't even know they're toxic. They think they're defending themselves. They think they're standing up for their truth. They think they're doing what they need to survive. They confuse emotional dysfunction with strength, and they mistake control for confidence. This illusion is spreading because there's no pressure to grow, no incentive to self-reflect, and no accountability for destructive behavior. The world is changing faster than people can process, and instead of adapting, many collapse into patterns that harm themselves and everyone around them. And unless you learn how to recognize these patterns early and protect your energy, you'll keep absorbing the fallout of a society that's losing emotional depth day by day. And this shift has another effect. You begin to change too. You become more cautious. You trust less. You build walls. You get used to expecting manipulation before kindness. Your nervous system stays on alert because it knows how common toxic behavior has become. And little by little, society becomes a place where people don't relate, they defend. They don't listen, they react. They don't connect, they compete for emotional territory. That is the world we're drifting into. It's the erosion of consequences. In the past, if someone acted cruelly, their community pushed back. Their reputation suffered. They felt the weight of their behavior. But today, people can burn bridges and simply move on to a new circle, a new job, a new platform, a new identity. Accountability is optional now. And when people can behave badly without paying the price, toxic behavior multiplies because nothing stops it from spreading. This lack of consequences also makes toxic people bolder. They learn that they can criticize you freely, but the moment you push back, you're labeled sensitive, dramatic, or difficult. They weaponize the idea of boundaries to do whatever they want while condemning you for protecting your own. They twist psychological language to excuse bad behavior they have no intention of fixing. And because society treats emotional discomfort like injustice, toxic people manipulate that weakness to their advantage. But the deepest reason toxicity is rising is because modern life rewards surface-level identity over inner character. People want to look confident rather than be confident. They want to seem superior rather than grow. They want admiration without self-improvement. And because performing a personality is easier than developing one, many people choose the performance. The result is a world full of inflated egos trying to hide fragile inner lives. When ego outgrows maturity, toxicity fills the gap. And this is why arguing with toxic people feels impossible. They're not protecting their point, they're protecting their identity. They don't want truth, they want dominance. They don't want solutions, they want control. Every conversation becomes a battlefield because they're fighting to protect a self-image that can't survive honesty or vulnerability. And the more fragile they are inside, the more aggressive they become outside. The rise in toxicity is also connected to the decline in self-awareness. People rarely pause. They rarely reflect. They rarely examine the patterns that control them. They move through life reacting instead of understanding. And when someone lives in reaction mode, every disagreement feels like an attack, every challenge feels like disrespect, and every boundary feels like rejection. You can't expect emotional intelligence from people who never learn how to sit with themselves. But here's the truth that gives you power. The rise of toxic people doesn't mean you're powerless. In fact, it means the opposite. The more chaotic society becomes, the more valuable your self-awareness is. The more emotionally unstable people become, the more your stability stands out. And the more manipulation becomes normal, the more your clarity becomes a shield. You don't have to fix toxic people. You don't have to change them. You just have to understand how they operate so you don't mistake their dysfunction for your responsibility. And knowing this gives you an advantage they can't stand: emotional independence. When you stay grounded, they lose control. When you stay calm, they lose influence. When you stay self-aware, they lose their ability to distort your reality. Toxic people flourish in confusion, but they crumble around clarity. And clarity is exactly what you gain the moment you understand why modern society is developing more of them in the first place. So keep strengthening your mind. Keep building your emotional boundaries. Keep learning how to respond instead of react. You live in a world where toxic people are multiplying, but that only makes your self-awareness more powerful and more necessary. And if you want more insights that help you stay emotionally strong in a world that's losing itself, make sure you're here for the next videos. Your clarity, your awareness, and your growth matter more now than ever. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.